August thumped her finger on her forehead like she was trying to tap one of them off some back shelf behind her head. Then her eyes lit up and she said, "Well, one time Big Mama told me she went out to the hives on Christmas Eve and heard the bees singing the words of the Christmas story right out of the Gospel of Luke. August started to sing, then in a humming sort of way. Mary brought forth her foursome child, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in the manger." I giggled. "Do you think that really happened?" "Well, yes and no," she said. "Some things happen in a literal way, Lily, and then other things, like this one, happen in a non-literal way. But they still happen. Do you know what I mean?" I didn't have a clue. "Not really," I said. "What I mean is that the bees weren't really singing the words from Luke. But still, if you have the right kind of ears, you can listen to a hive and hear the Christmas story somewhere inside yourself. You can hear the silent things on the other side of the everyday world that nobody else can. Big Mama and those had those kind of ears. Now, my mother, she didn't really have that gift. I think it skipped a generation." I was itching to know more about her mother. "I bet your mother kept bees too," I said. She seemed amused by that. "Goodness, no. She wasn't interested at all. She left here as soon as she could and went to live with a cousin up in Richmond. Got a job in a hotel laundry. You remember the first day you got here? I told you I grew up in Richmond. Well, that's where my father was from. He was the first colored dentist in Richmond. He met my mother when she went to see him with a toothache. I sat there a minute and thought about the odd ways of life. If it wasn't for a toothache, August wouldn't be here, or May, or June, or Black Madonna honey, and I wouldn't be sitting here talking to her. I loved Richmond, but my heart was always right here," she said. "Growing up, I couldn't wait to get here and spend the summers. And when Big Mama died, she left all this property to me, June, and May. I've been here keeping bees nearly 18 years now." Sunlight gleamed against the honey house window, flickering, and now and then with a shifting cloud. We sat in the yellowish quiet for a while and worked without talking. I was afraid I'd tire her out with all my questions. Finally, I couldn't hold myself back. I said, "So what did you do in Virginia before you came here?" She gave me a teasing look that seemed to say, "My goodness, you sure want to know a lot of things." But then she dived right in, her hands not slowing down one bit, pasting labels. "I studied at a Negro teachers' college in Maryland. June did too, but it was hard to get a job since there weren't that many places for Negroes to teach. I ended up working 9 years as a housekeeper. Eventually, I got a job teaching history. It lasted 6 years, till we moved down here." "What about June?" She laughed. "June, you wouldn't catch her keeping house for white people. She went to work at a colored funeral home, dressing the bodies and doing their hair. That seemed like the perfect job for her. It would be easy for her to get along with dead people. May and June almost got married one time." "That's right, about 10 years ago." I was wondering. I stopped looking for a way to ask her. "You were wondering if there was ever a time when I almost got married?" "Yeah," I said. "I guess I was. I decided against marrying altogether. There were enough restrictions in my life without someone expecting me to wait on him hand and foot. Not that I'm against marrying, Lily. I'm just against how it's set up. I was thinking, well, it's not just a marriage that's set up like that. And what about me waiting on T-Ray hand and foot, and we were just father and daughter? Pour me some more tea, Lily. Polish my shoes, Lily. Go get the truck keys, Lily." I sincerely hoped she didn't mean this sort of thing went on in a marriage. "Weren't you ever in love?" I asked. "Being in love and getting married. Now that's two different things. I was in love once. Of course I was. Nobody should go throughout life without falling in love." "But you didn't love him enough to marry him?" She smiled at me. "I loved him enough," she said. "I just loved my freedom more." We glued labels till we ran out of jars. Then, for the heck of it, I moistened the back of one more and pressed it onto my t-shirt in the gully between my breasts. August looked at the clock, announcing we'd done so good with our time we had a whole hour left before lunch. "Come on," she said. "Let's do bee patrol." Though I'd done bee patrol with Zach, I hadn't been back to the hives with August since that first time. I pulled on long cotton pants that used to be June's and August's white shirt, which needed the sleeves rolled up about 10 turns. Then I placed the jungle helmet on my head, letting the veil fall down over my face. I walked into the woods beside the pink house with her stories still pulled soft around our shoulders. I could feel them touching me in places, like an actual shawl. "There's one thing I don't get," I said. "What's that?" "How come, if your favorite color is blue, you painted your house so pink?" She laughed. "That was May's doing. She was with me the day I went to the paint store to pick out the color. It had a nice tan color in mind, but May latched onto the sample called Caribbean Pink. She said it made her feel like dancing a Spanish flamenco. I thought, well, this is the tackiest color I've ever seen, and we'll have half the town talking about us, but if it can lift May's heart like that, I guess she ought to live inside it." "All this time I figured you liked pink," I said. She laughed again. "You know, some things don't matter that much, Lily, like the color of a house, how big it is in the overall scheme of life, but lifting a person's heart, now that matters. The whole problem with people is they don't know what matters and what doesn't," I said, filling in her sentence and feeling proud of myself for doing so. I was going to say the problem is they know what matters, but they don't choose it. You know how hard that is, Lily? I love May, but it was still so hard to choose Caribbean Pink. The hardest thing on earth is choosing what matters. I couldn't locate a stray bee anywhere. The hives looked like an abandoned neighborhood and their air groggy with heat. You got the impression the bees were inside having a big siesta. Maybe all that excessive work had finally caught up with them. "Where are they?" I said. August placed her fingers on her lips, signaling me to be quiet. She lifted off her helmet and laid the side of her face against the top of the hive. "Come listen," she whispered. I removed my hat, tucking it under my arm, and placing my face next to hers, so that we were practically nose to nose. "You hear that?" she said. A sound rushed up, a perfect hymn, high-pitched and swollen, like someone had put the tea kettle on it and it had come to a boil. "They're cooling the hives down," she said, and her breath broke over my face with the smell of spearmint. "That's the sound of 100,000 bee wings fanning the air." She closed her eyes and soaked in the way you imagine people at a fancy orchestra concert drinking up highbrow music.